Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Rowland.
And my name is Push.
And we are presenting our new podcast. The reason we're doing this podcast is partly to talk about vinyl, but probably what's going to happen is we'll talk about a lot of other things that have got absolutely nothing to do with vinyl. But it will be connected loosely into the world of music, popular culture, our own histories as music journalists. Both Push and I are the founders of Electronic Sound magazine, which you may or may not know about. If you don't know about, you can find out more about us on electronicsound.co.uk, and no doubt we will bang on quite a lot about it.
Yeah, try stopping us talking about that.
Perhaps we should introduce or tell our own story a little bit so people know who the hell we are and why they should be interested in what we've got to say. So Push, tell me and everybody about your noble history as a music journalist.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so not before music journalists.
No, we don't need that stuff.
School stuff, you're not interested in that?
No.
Okay. So I started writing about music with my own little fanzine in 1981.
What was that called?
It was called Happy Cheese.
Why was it called Happy Cheese?
I don't know.
Okay.
I thought it was a good idea at the time.
You really don't know?
No, I don't know. I really have no idea where it came from. Somebody said it somewhere down the line, and it became the title or the name of the fanzine. It was a thing that sometimes I thought it was a really good name for
it's
a
not
fanzine.
A bad name. It's
sometimes
right.
I was deeply embarrassed. I feel myself flushing now.
Really?
Deeply embarrassed by it.
Oh no.
So anyway,
no, it's not that. It's not embarrassing at all.
No, okay, good. That's good to know.
Because I like it because it's not trying to be edgy.
I think it was in its own kind of sweet way, but yeah.
It wasn't using any of those sort of post-punk signifier words. Happy and cheese don't really...
No, probably not post-punk. You're probably right.
So,
I'm not quite sure.
Anyway, continue.
Thank you. So I started writing for Melody Maker in 1985. And that's really where it kind of... I did a few things before that. There's a few little weird magazines. Soundcheck, do you remember that?
Oh, I do vaguely remember that.
It was like giving away at gigs in
live
London.
thing, yeah. Okay.
So Melody Maker was one of the three, at that time, newsprint music papers rather than magazines at the time. So they came out every week. There was Sounds, there was NME, and there was Melody Maker. And I actually started at Sounds. I did a few things for Sounds in about 83, 84. But then, went to Melody Maker in 85 and started writing for them just as a freelancer, And I was at Melody Maker for 10 years, which was quite a long time, really. And then after Melody Maker, I was the editor of a magazine called Music, M-U-Z-I-K. We always had to say that. It was one of those things, we thought it was a great name for a mag, Music. It was very... 1995, we thought it was very 21st century.
You got to use a Z
to have a Z and a K, but what we hadn't thought about was radio. And every time you said the word... the title of the magazine was Music, but it became Music with a Z and a K because you had to say that every time. So I did that for sort of 3-4 years. Then I did some sort of non-music stuff for a while. Wrote 2 or 3 books, including a book called Rat Scabies and the Holy Grail. Rat
Scabies being the drummer of famed punk combo The Damned.
Indeed, yeah, punk legend The Damned, who I got to know pretty well, and he had we developed a thing about the Holy Grail through various nights in the pub, and we decided to go and look for it. So it was 3 years of my life I spent looking for the Holy Grail with Rat Scabies. And so I wrote a book about it.
That's something I think we're probably going to have to revisit.
We may come back to that at some point.
I think we may well.
Yeah. And then I did some other non-music stuff. And then Electronic Sound came about the story sort of started in very end of 2011.
That's right, yes.
And then we actually launched the mag that's called Electronic Sound. There was another mag that was called just Electronic before that was just one issue. And then Electronic Sound launched as a sort of a digital, an app to begin with. And that was I think we did 19 issues.
That's right.
And then went into print with Electronic Sound in 2016. So we've done 10 years. It's 10th anniversary this year.
Yeah.
Of Electronic Sound as a print magazine every month, and it's lovely. And of course, you know all about this because you work there too.
I was there. I do work there. Yes. Yeah.
So your turn.
Well, like you, I started with a fanzine. In fact, I was remembering my first ever fanzine was a fantasy fanzine, which wasn't real. I just did covers for it, and it was called Craft, Kraft. And
hang on a minute, that's a cheese connection.
Oh, how about that? Happy Cheesecraft. So I think that's often the way things happen, isn't it? You fantasize about something and then you make it real somehow. And I think that's what happened with me. The first, I guess, proper fanzine I did was called Scratch. And we did that with some friends from the university here in Norwich. And we did 5 or 6 issues of that, I think. And this would have been 88, 89, 90.
You got into trouble, didn't you, with that from IPC, who were the publishers of NME and Melody Maker?
Did get into trouble. Yes, we did. We got a cease and desist from Alan Lewis, who was the publishing director, I think.
No, he was editor-in-chief. He was my boss, basically, but at Melody Maker, my ultimate boss, I suppose.
It's interesting because what happened was I interviewed the band Cud. And actually, I should be careful because I can't actually repeat what happened because that would be repeating
That would be not desisting. That would be...
No, that would be telling it again. Let me see if I can think of a way of telling this story without getting in trouble again. So they said some things about how NME coverage was arranged.
And it was specifically NME?
Specifically NME.
Right.
About how one would go about getting Single of the Week in NME, which we all know happens because a writer chooses it.
Yeah.
Then that's why. Cud had a slightly different angle on how that happened.
Right.
And me being the inexperienced journalist that I wasn't, wrote what they said down. Didn't think anything of it. And then we got a fax sometime later, about 3 weeks later, from Alan Lewis saying, that stuff that you printed in your fanzine, that's not true. Retract immediately or we're going to sue you.
Wow.
So obviously we panicked quite a lot and retracted it quite a lot. That fanzine, we did another thing where we said we used to make up quotes, which goes to show how inexperienced we were, just for a laugh. Okay. But not quotes within a feature. We just sort of do them as a sort of, I don't know what you'd call it really, like a sort of a joke page, I guess. And for some reason, I remember we did one that said, Bono.
Hang on, do you need to, are you sure this is...
No, I think this is okay. I think this is okay. So this was a joke. This is a joke, everybody. Bono...
apparently.
So open quote, Bono, hyphen, never heard of him, close quote, attributed to Prince. I don't know why we said that. We were just, chuckling to ourselves and did it. About 2 weeks later, Piers Morgan in The Sun re-quoted that quote as if it had actually been said. So we learned very early on, watch out what you put in because people are actually reading it. We didn't think anybody outside of the people we were selling it to gigs out of a carrier bag were actually reading this stuff, but we learned that that wasn't the case.
Yeah,
So I guess it put us on the map a bit, and I think it put me on the map of Alan Lewis. So
right.
He then knew who I was.
Yeah.
I tried to get to write for NME for quite a long time. I kept bothering Steve Lamacq, who was the editor of the new bands section, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And then I got in at Melody Maker. And that's where we worked together.
Yeah.
So that was 93, two. I think I started there.
Yeah.
And we worked together on a page, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Called Info Freako.
Yeah.
Which this podcast may, I was thinking about this actually, it sort of feels a little bit like some of what we used to do on Info Freako might happen in this podcast, where we used to just answer readers' questions.
Yeah, readers would write in with questions, and we would answer them to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
And they were often kind of, what happened to so-and-so, and did that track ever come out, and whatever. And in the days before the internet, I mean, Info Freako would not survive now. It's pointless.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the days before the internet, and obviously the days before Wikipedia, we used to have to ring up PRs, and I think they hated us because we'd ring up and say, "Can you find out whether that band actually released that track in America, and was it a B-side, and what coloured vinyl was it on?" And the PR would be going, "Oh God,
it was so anal." Not only and what colour vinyl was it on, and also what was the number as well, the catalogue number.
Yeah.
And was that the same catalogue number for the cassette version? How did that work? And it was very, very anal.
Yeah, it was great fun to do. But I tell you what, the other thing about it was kind of a bit of a rip-off of Fred Fact, which was Fred Della's column in the NME.
That was true.
Which I kind of came up with the idea of, let's rip it off. And Alan Jones, the editor of Melody Maker, went for it. But we would try to be a bit more kind of light-hearted than Fred Della was very, very good, and we were a bit less good, and a bit more slap-happy, but a bit more kind of, and probably slightly less dry, maybe, potentially.
I think that's what we used to like to think. I think Melody Maker generally was a bit like that compared to NME.
Yeah.
NME, I think Melody Maker had more humour, took itself a little less seriously, perhaps, than NME did.
We will, no doubt, as this podcast hopefully evolves, I'm sure we will be talking a lot about the music press from our time there and historically and so on. So anyway, you were a Melody Maker.
So I was a Melody Maker from 92, sort of rose up through the ranks and took over the section that you did when you left. Did some stuff for music as well.
Yeah.
And then, we did another magazine together called Mondo.
Which wasn't a music mag.
That was a lifestyle magazine, sort of alternative lifestyle magazine, I suppose. And then I think we both just walked away from journalism, music journalism. Both you did your book.
Yeah.
I wrote a book about the Red Hot Chili Peppers with Rob Fitzpatrick from Melody Maker.
Yeah.
I did a few other little things. I actually then was pursuing photography, and then you came up with the idea for Electronic Sound magazine, and the rest is history.
The rest is a nightmare.
The rest is, and here we are now doing a podcast. So that's us.
Yes.
So the idea is that we're going to sort of pluck out some records from our collections, and we're going to look at some of the records that we're sort of responsible for as well, in a way, and that because Electronic Sound, every month we do a 7-inch, mostly as a 7-inch. Sometimes we do a CD, maybe twice a year, I think.
Yeah, once or twice. Yeah, once or twice a year.
But mostly a 7-inch. I mean, that in itself is quite an interesting journey, I suppose. Like, why do we do a 7-inch every month? What's the thinking there? And I guess what had happened when we went into print, as Push said earlier, we did 19 issues as a digital-only magazine, thinking that was the future of publishing. And quite rapidly, it took us 19 issues to discover that perhaps it wasn't quite the future that we were hoping it was going to be.
Well, yeah,
right?
Certainly. I think that's certainly partly true. I mean, when we started it, we had in mind very specifically Apple Newsstand.
That's right. Yes, because it just launched.
Apple. It was one of Steve Jobs' kind of big ideas, wasn't it? This idea of the Newsstand app, where all magazines and newspapers would exist. So we came up with a mag called Electronic Sound that was it was like an app. It had movable photographs, and we had video, and it had all the kind of things you would get in an app. And and it lived inside the newsstand app. So if you had the newsstand app, you could then buy anything that was in there, from the New York Times through to little magazines like us. But then I forget what issue we were on, but it wasn't very long. We'd done a few issues, maybe half a dozen or something. And Newsstand got dumped. Apple dumped Newsstand. And suddenly all of those things that had been in the Newsstand app got put into the general kind of
standalone sort of app store
stuff. And so you couldn't find anything, where, everybody who was in the Newsstand app suffered because nobody could find you. You were then competing with weather apps and games and, stuff like that. And it was just impossible. So, and combined with the fact that, if you remember this, I still have nightmares about this, is that every time, we were quite specifically for Apple, really.
iPad.
We did do, it was the iPad that we were kind of focusing on.
We used to get quite a lot of emails, people saying, when are you going to do this for Android?
Yeah, so that became a thing that we did do. And that was one sort of nightmare. But the problem became that we did a phone version, and then every time there was a new operating system, you'd have to update everything. Every time there was a new size of a phone, here's a new, the iPhone, whatever it would be, 4, 5, it would be, oh, great, they've changed the screen size. So we'd have to do another version.
Yes.
But you still had to do a version for the people of the old version.
Yeah.
So I think by the time we stopped doing it and made us go into print, I think we were doing seven different versions of it.
It was awful.
It was dreadful. We'd spend more time doing versions of the mag than we would doing the mag. So we went into print, which was actually a real relief for us because we'd come from print and we understood print. It came with a whole bunch of other problems. But that was the first sort of 19 issues. And then we did like 4 or 5 as a magazine, as a print magazine. They went into W.H. Smith's, and we did what a lot of magazines do, and that's put a CD on the cover as a cover mount. So you sell the magazine and you have a free CD with it. And I think we did 4 or 5 like that.
Yeah.
And then you came up with the idea of not doing a CD, but let's put a 7-inch.
Yeah.
And it was almost by accident.
It was really because what we had done, we had made a 7-inch single. We'd commissioned Jack Dangers of Meat Beat Manifesto to collaborate with Wolfgang Fleur, formerly of Kraftwerk, on 2 new tracks, which they did for us. And we pressed those 2 tracks onto a clear vinyl 7-inch with I think we did 100 limited edition hand screen printed.
We did a
covers.
Kickstarter for it, didn't we? Did we do a Kickstarter?
Oh, I can't remember.
I think
Maybe
we did. Yeah, I think we did.
Yes, we did. That's right.
Yeah, we did.
And then there was the rest of the pressing had a regular. It was an insert. It wasn't in a sleeve actually. It was a sort of 7-inch piece of card. And I can't remember how many we pressed, probably about 1,000 or something. Because when we first went into print, we did an issue that was sort of a live dummy, and we did maybe 1,000 of those, a really tiny run, and just sort of gave most of them away and sold some. And then that kind of seemed to work. We wanted to carry on doing that. And we were selling into Smith's, but we would also sell a few from the website, and wasn't really what we were doing. But we had some of these 7-inches which we had created to give to people who subscribed as a kind of gift. We had some left over. And I said, why don't we put that with this new issue and say you get the 7-inch with the magazine? And I think we sold out in 2 days.
Yeah.
They just went.
Yeah.
And that made us think, oh, okay, that's a good idea. Let's do that then. So then we started to think about doing a 7-inch for every issue. And we've now done about 100 and I don't know how many we've done, over 100.
Well, we've done 100. We're now, where are we? It's January 2026. So we have we just finished before Christmas issue 133.
Okay.
So we've done 113 issues in print. 114.
Right.
So we must have done in 114 issues, we've probably done about 20 CDs over the time.
Okay. So maybe
we've done
approaching 100.
So we're getting on for 107 inches that we've put out. So what we thought we'd do would we've each picked out one of our favourite 7 inches that we've done, and we're going to talk a little bit about each one really. And shall I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll start off. The one that I've picked out was Electronic Sound issue 42, which was 2018. I think I've worked out, and it's the normal. It's a straight reissue of Warm Leatherette TVOD by the Normal on clear vinyl, and it goes with a cover story. Because that's the thing to actually just quickly note. All of the 7 inches that we do go with the cover story of the magazine. It goes with the cover story of Mute, basically, and an interview with Daniel Miller that I did. And there's some others. We've got Vince Clarke in this issue as well. This issue, by the way, is long sold out, so unfortunately you can't get it. You can buy a PDF of the magazine, but the record is long sold out, as is the print mag. And the reason I've picked it is because I remember buying the original version, the original release of the Normal Warm Leatherette stroke TVOD, the first release on Mute, I think it was.
I think so. Yeah.
In fact, what we recreated was the sleeve exactly as it was on the original. This is a Mute record, it says on the back, and it's got Mute's Walking Man logo, which is kind of like, I don't know if it's a Letraset logo, Letraset thing, is it? I don't know, I'm not sure. It might be. So we've got Vince Clarke in there talking about the label, a few other people talking about the label, thing about Mute's kind of class of 2018, because in more recent years they're kind of well known, obviously, for Depeche Mode, for Erasure, for people like struggling to think, looking at the quick intro, the Fad Gadget, of course, Daft, Liebach, blah, blah, blah. But more recently, they had people like New Order and ACR, A Certain Ratio, on the label. And they were quite new to the label, I think, at the time that we did the interview. So I sat down and did an interview with Daniel Miller. I'd never met him before. He was a fantastic interview. I went to lunch with him in a Chinese/Korean restaurant in Hammersmith, where they knew him he had his own table there, pretty much, it would seem. They knew him very well. He goes there a lot, it would seem. And I sat there with him for a couple of hours, and he was very generous with his time, and he was very entertaining, and a really interesting interview. And it was largely about Mute Records, but I tried to make the piece about him, because I kind of felt, I sort of spoke to a few people before I did the interview and said to them, what do you know about his background and, his kind of his adolescent years and growing up and how he got into music. And I spoke to a few journos and kind of drew a blank. Nobody really knew. So I kind of talked a bit about that with him. That was really interesting. His dad was an actor, which I didn't know. His mum and dad had both come to the UK from Vienna just before the Second World War. They got out just before. I think it was around about the time that Austria and Germany Hitler put them together as, whatever it was going to be, the German Empire, the start of the Nazi Empire.
Is that the Anschluss?
That's it. That's the historical term for it, yeah. So they came into the UK, and his dad was, his mum and dad, they didn't, I remember rightly, Daniel said that his mum and dad didn't know each other in Vienna. They met in London. They were both refugees. And but they both ended up working for the BBC German programme. And Daniel told me that his dad did this a very comic impersonation of Hitler that was quite kind of a thing. And the BBC used this and broadcast this into Germany. And they were part of that.
Wow! So he was kind of like the opposite of Lord Hawthorne.
Yeah. I guess, yeah.
Pumping
he was
propaganda
one
back
of those.
in.
I think it was a one-off that he did that.
Right,
But he worked in the theatre. His dad was in the original cast of The Mousetrap.
Really, still running in the West End.
Yeah, he was in the first about 1,000 shows that he did. But his dad was also in things like The Prisoner.
Was he?
He was in the first series of Doctor Who.
Wow.
I think the little bit parts, obviously, that he was doing, but he was kind of, So Daniel talked a lot about his dad. His dad died when Daniel was only 18. So I think he said, he talked about not really knowing him as well as he would have liked to have done. But he talks a lot about that and his upbringing. He was school days as well. He was in... he grew up in Golders Green, and he was at school. One of his classmates was Paul Kossoff. Do you know Paul Kossoff? Yeah, the guitarist in Free.
Did he died?
He did die. Yeah, he
heroin.
died. Yeah, no, I don't think it was actually. He did certainly have an issue with a drug problem. Paul Kossoff did, but I'm not sure that was exactly what the cause of death was with him. But yes, Daniel Miller was in the same class as Paul Kossoff, and I remember Daniel saying that he would go to him and another couple of the boys would go to Paul Kossoff's house, and they would try and learn. They're trying to be in a band, and and it became very, very quickly obvious that they'd all had a guitar or so for a few weeks, and within a few weeks, Paul Kossoff was just doing incredible things with it, and the rest of them were just sitting around with their mouths open, going, "Oh, how do you do that?" And of course, Paul Kossoff went on to become, as you said, in Free, probably one of the greatest guitarists that Britain ever produced. So he talks about that as well, and then from there how he got into electronic music and so on. So it's one of my favourite interviews I've ever done, actually, and The Normal. That was that one. So that was my choice.
I also remember buying that record when it came out, and I think we talked about this relatively recently, that it was only when we did this reissue that I was really looking at the detail, and it's got the address. There's an address on there, which...
That's right. I can just see it here now on the back of sleeve of the record. 16 Decoy Avenue.
Decoy Avenue. So...
Was that was Daniel's house?
That was Daniel's house. That's where he lived.
Where he lived.
16 Decoy Avenue. I assumed, because of the whole J.G. Ballard, sci-fi weirdness feel of that record, that Decoy Avenue was just a made-up kind of clever J.G. Ballard sort of address. And I thought, that's cool. Decoy Avenue, yeah. But it's for real. And I looked it up on Google Maps, and I realised that I lived maybe a 5-minute bicycle ride away from Decoy Avenue when I bought that record.
Brilliant. So it's Northwest London.
Northwest London, yeah. I lived in Colindale. And it's literally, I'd been there 5 minutes on my bike. And the thing is had I known that, I was 14, I think, I totally would have cycled round and stalked Daniel Miller because I was obsessed with that record. I just couldn't believe it, and the idea now that it was. I think he actually recorded it there as well.
Yeah, I think he did do it.
That record was made within sort of almost earshot of where I lived. Would have blown my tiny mind.
That's brilliant. I've just had a thought. Yes, and I suppose when we reissued it and put that on the back of the sleeve as the original had, I wonder if there anybody whoever lives at 16D. We should just go and knock on their door. So anybody listening to this, 16. No, don't do that.
Don't do that. Well, very good.
So your choice.
My choice. Coincidentally, I don't think we compared notes before we did this, from the same year. This is Devo, Mechanical Man EP. So this was with issue 103. Can you calculate what year that would have been? That's more recent than your one.
So 3 years come summer.
Okay, so 2023.
Middle of 2023,
yes. The summer of 1978, Devo were the hottest band in the world in many ways. There was some confusion because Virgin claimed they'd signed them. Warner's also had signed them. They'd already made the album with Brian Eno.
The first album.
The first album, Are We Not Men, in Connie Plank's studio, just outside Cologne in Germany, with Brian Eno producing. And Brian Eno paid for the production because I think Eno knew that he would have no problem finding a deal and getting his money back with knobs on. Bowie was going to produce it originally, but Bowie was too busy making, I think, Just a Gigolo, which is a film we should probably talk about at some point. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I don't know that I have.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as to say I would recommend it, but it's worth watching for some reasons. Anyway, so Bowie couldn't really do it, although he did pop in on the sessions and Eno did it. But it was sort of held up while Warner's and Virgin fought it out as to who was going to release it. Eventually came out in August 78. But in the meantime, the pressure was building. Everybody wanted Devo. They'd done a few singles on Stiff, Jocko Homo, Satisfaction and Be Stiff. And everybody wanted this album to come out. And somehow this weird little 7-inch popped out. But it wasn't an official release. It was sort of a bootleg.
Right.
And I remember hearing about it and eventually managing to find a copy. And it was quite expensive. I seem to remember paying quite a lot of money for it. And then I went to see Devo in December of 78 at the Hammersmith Odeon. And I remember after the gig going around to the backstage, where the backstage door was, and trying to get my picture disc signed, which I did get my picture disc signed by Mark Mothersbaugh, and people were thrusting stuff for them to sign, and somebody handed over a copy of Mechanical Man, and I remember, I think it was Alan Myers, the drummer, picked it up, looked at it, said, and showed it to another member of the band who looked at it, and then they said, "We don't sign bootlegs."
Wow.
And then they didn't give it back.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I thought, oh, because...
How old were you at the time?
I was 14.
Right.
So but the weird thing is in some copies of Are We Not Men, this was inside. This bootleg was inside.
Oh, okay.
I actually asked Jerry Casale of Devo about this a couple of years ago, and he didn't know who was responsible for it. So he said. So who knows? Who knows who did that? But I think what had happened was, my theory is that Virgin knew that they had to get this album out. They were in court with Warner's and they needed some Devo product out there. So I wonder whether somebody said, let's put because it's basically 4 recordings of demos that they did.
Right.
Let's put this demo tape out. We'll sort of under the counter and just sort of nudge it out there. And then the leftovers, a bit like us with our Jack Danger's Wolfgang Fleur single, thought,
right.
let's shove the rest of them in Are We Not Men and shift them that way. And Are We Not Men, of course, came on 5 different coloured vinyls and a picture disc. Do I have them all? I hear you ask.
Oh gosh.
Yes, I do. So when we...
That's insane.
It is insane. I've also got a clear vinyl one from Holland. Yeah, we'll do a special on Devo one time, I'm sure.
Yeah, I suspected you'd say that.
Yeah.
I suspect you to say that at some point. First bloody episode, you're
Devo.
already planning the Devo special.
Yeah.
There we are.
If anybody who is a regular reader of Electronic Sound has ever wondered whether there's somebody at this magazine who is constantly trying to get their favourite band into the magazine, then your detective skills are probably correct. But anyway, when we did this, I was beyond delighted.
And the band were up for it as well, though.
They were totally up for it.
Yeah.
It got held up at one point because of the various parties that now look after Devo's interests and labels and stuff. And I just dropped Jerry a line and said, we're sort of getting a bit stuck. And Jerry immediately wrote an email going, "What's going on here, guys? Was everybody CC'd on it? Let's get this moving. Come on." and then it was sorted.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was great.
I remember that, yeah.
So that's a good one. Again, like yours, it sold out very quickly.
Yeah.
It's always that's a tricky problem for us, is that we're an independent company. We don't have massive budgets or anything. We pile everything back into the business, really, and trying to make everything as good quality as we can. And we have to be very careful with the amounts that we press, because we've got to get it right. You know, we've got to get the demand that we suspect it's going to be. So they do tend to sell out. So back issues get very, very sold out.
Yeah, the more popular ones. There are still some back issues left, but the older stuff they're all gone.
Yeah, you see them on Discogs. I don't know if you ever look on Discogs at our stuff, but some of them are crazy prices.
Yeah, I think, was it Japan one that we did?
Oh, yeah.
That was pretty. And Ultravox.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
which we did. Both of those being pretty high.
There's the Factory. We did a double 7-inch.
Oh, the
Factory.
That's brilliant.
That's really good.
Yeah.
We'll come back to those.
I'm sure we will. Those. You mentioned David Bowie.
I did.
And we were going to talk about the David Bowie...
The documentary.
Channel 4
documentary, The Final Act, I think it was called, which was, as we record this, I think it came out at the weekend that's just been.
So it's a couple of days ago.
This is the first week of 2026. What did we think? Is my question to you. I can tell you what I thought.
Go on then.
I thought, so a couple of big standouts for me was John Wild was the music journalist at the Melody Maker, who reviewed the second Tin Machine album and recounted the story of him then getting a phone call from Alan Jones, the editor who we've mentioned earlier. He's needed to be seen in the office, thought he was in for a bollocking, went in there. And in the office with Alan Jones was David Bowie's then PR, his name I can't remember, who then told Jonesy and John Wild that he'd been sat with Bowie in his house in Switzerland when he was reading the Melody Maker review of the Tin Machine album, and he cried because it was so negative and brutal. I think it said something like, his final line was, "What a fucking disgrace."
It says, "Sit down, man. What a fucking disgrace," I think were the final words of the review.
I mean, it is harsh. That is a harsh kind of thing. But then, as we were saying earlier, Melody Maker all of the music press was full of reviews like that. I
mean, if we had to sort of like deal with every single PR's complaint about an album, a bad album review in Melody Maker, we'd have been doing that every week.
Yeah, so I was struck by that, because I thought how everything has changed so much that a star of David Bowie's standing would be interested and that affected by a review.
That was kind of interesting, yeah.
And I guess an indication of the power of the music press back then, that, it was a really, really important way of reaching audiences for artists, possibly one of the most outside radio, maybe. But also then that the PR would somehow want to have come back at the writer about it somehow, which I found interesting. I don't know if you would see that these days. I don't know if you saw it then. It just struck me as a very weird thing. The other thing that stood out for me was John Wild's beard, which was very big now, and I don't remember him having a beard.
He certainly didn't have a beard, no.
No, so I did not recognise him at all. He just looked like a beardy guy. But it was a huge beard. And same with Reeves Gabriel's, the guitarist of Tin Machine, who has also got a massive beard. And didn't have a massive beard when he was in Tin Machine. Yeah, it is a thing, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
A lot of beard.
Yeah.
So that stood out for me. The other thing I think, which we talked about earlier a bit, was I think we both felt that this was going to be about the sort of late era Bowie, I kind of thought it would be about the 90s albums and then a lot about the Next Day and Black Star. And it kind of wasn't. It wasn't really that at all. It was much more of it kept bouncing back to sort of the 1971 Glastonbury appearance, and then talked about the Hammersmith Odeon gig, and then when he broke the spiders up on stage. So sort of stories that we sort of knew already and had been told already, I felt. But I would have liked to have seen much, much more about those last two albums and what was happening in the studio, how those songs came about. Because they sort of went right past the Next Day.
Yeah.
It seemed to me.
Yeah.
Hardly got any mention at all. And
yeah.
They spent quite a long time talking to the BBC 6 DJ, who was the first person to play Where Are We Now, the first track off that album. But yeah, it was good. It was entertaining enough, but maybe I'd like to have seen a bit more about how those albums came together.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I felt as well. I was sort of disappointed in that. I find it quite entertaining, the whole thing quite interesting, and quite entertaining. But it wasn't what I think it was billed to be. I think it was called The Final Chapter.
It's the final,
but it was more like the final chapter and like loads of other chapters
and the first 10 chapters as well.
Yeah,
yeah.
So that was a kind of a shame in a way, but it was. The focus very much on Tin Machine was I was quite interested in that, but it wasn't what I was expecting.
Because it's a totally overlooked, for good reason, if you ask me, period of Bowie's
Which is, of course,
career.
that's what John Wilde was talking about, and that's what that John Wilde review was about, which I vaguely remember at the time. But it's kind of weird because it made me think that I think I may have gone to see, this is awful, really. I think I may have gone to the first Tin Machine gig in London at the Town and Country Club, because I lived very close to the Town and Country, and Town and Country was one of those venues that I used to pop into a lot.
Which is Kentish Town.
So
now known as the Forum? Or was it something? The
maybe.
O2 Forum, I think.
Possibly.
Yeah, just north of Camden.
Yeah, and I lived literally 5 minutes walk up the road from there, and I'd always go. There was that. I used to go to the Bull and Gate, which was right next door to the Town and Country Club.
Of course, yeah.
So I'd go to the Bull and Gate, Town and Country Club, and also Camden Palace a lot. Yeah. And they were places that I would go to on my way back from central London generally. I'd probably been to other gigs, not Town and Country because the gigs were early, but Camden Palace, I'd always pitch up there about midnight. And I'd do it like once or twice a week. And it's like the Town and Country. You knew the door staff. You could generally get in either round the front or round the back with a nod and a wink, unless it was a totally sold out show. I've got in my diary that I just written down Tin Machine, Town and Country, T&C. It says Tin Machine, T&C. Whether that means I went or not, if I did go, I have no memory of it at all, which strikes me as being either I didn't go, which is entirely possible, or that it was so awful that I think if it had been really awful, I would have remembered it as well.
That.
So perhaps it was just one of those kind of shows. But I did see Bowie at Milton Keynes on the.
How was that?
That was very, very busy.
Right. It was busy.
It was busy. There's a lot of people. It was a scorching hot day.
Yes.
I think he played. So that was Let's Dance, and that was the.
Okay. Yeah. It was a huge, huge album.
What was that tour called?
The Let's Dance tour.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. Serious Moonlight
tour.
Yes.
I remember Q-Tips played that day and some others. I don't know.
It's like a mini festival.
I think he must have done like 3 or 4, maybe more shows there. Yeah. It was in the summer, and I went on the Sunday.
Right.
And it was scorching hot. And there's no cover at the Milton Keynes Bowl at all. There's nothing to shelter you from.
You're just getting
from
baked.
The sun. You're just getting baked, which I didn't care much. I like being baked anyway, so that's all right. But yes, I saw that, but whether I saw Tin Machine or not, who knows? Jury's out, and I'll never know.
You'll never know. I never saw Bowie. which is one of the great sadnesses of my life. Several artists I didn't see. Prince I never saw either. I really regret not having seen. But those Tin Machine albums are horrible. I
don't know them.
I tried again, and a little more recently, and I just found them almost unlistenable. I was in a taxi. I'll share this anecdote, and then maybe we'll have to wrap up because I think we're running out of time. So I was in Japan. I was coming back to the hotel, back to the airport after being there for a few weeks, and I'd just recovering from COVID. I felt absolutely awful. I was sat in the back of this cab, and the cab driver said he liked Bowie, and we were like, "Oh, great! He's going to put some Bowie on," and he put Low on. So we're driving through Tokyo at night with Low, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is great. I can do this. I didn't feel very good. I was in a sort of altered state because of the COVIDs, looking out of the window with my head pressed against the glass at the sort of neon madness that is Tokyo, with the B-side of the instrumentals of Low. And then for some reason, the taxi driver changed his mind. He must have thought, no, this is too much of a bummer. I'm going to put something more lively on. And I was like, oh, okay. And he put Tin Machine on. And the rest of that journey was torture. Absolute torture. I thought, Christ alive, will you just stop playing that guitar now? It's just unbearable. It was a misstep, Tin Machine. And no amount of time passing is going to change my opinion on that.
Oh, okay.
It was just Bowie wanted to be the Pixies, and he wasn't ever going to be the Pixies. And he didn't even get the Pixies right, I think. If you're going to rip the Pixies off, it's not Tin Machine.
What's your I know we have to finish, but what's your favourite Bowie album?
Oh, that's such a tricky one, isn't it?
All right. Favourite 3 Bowie albums?
All right. I think Low. I also think Scary Monsters.
Oh,
I know. And I have to say Ziggy Stardust, I think.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Ziggy Stardust is a bit like Sgt. Pepper's. It's one of those albums I find, or like Led Zeppelin 4. They're albums that everybody, they're like issued as a birth, everybody's, or Dark Side of the Moon. They're sort of albums that every human being alive has got, it seems. And they're revered and all the rest of it. And then they become this kind of, that's their worst album. They're terrible. And stupid Sgt. Pepper's and stupid Led Zeppelin 4 and stupid Stairway to Heaven and all that stuff. And you go, I'm just so bored with those records. What were we on about? And then you listen to them again after having not listened to them for ages. And you go, oh, yeah, actually, they're absolutely brilliant. And Ziggy Stardust is one of those where you think, oh, yeah, everybody goes on about Ziggy Stardust. And then you give it another listen, you go, oh, yeah, because it's so bloody brilliant. That's why. So that's my 3. How about you?
3 completely different albums to that.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting, isn't it? I think that's probably true of a lot of people who quite like Bowie, that they'd always pick 3 different albums. It depends what day of the week it is, as well.
Ask me on another day,
So Diamond Dogs would be number 1 for me, I think. But ask me on a different day, and I'd probably say Young Americans.
Oh, Young Americans, yeah, so good.
And I actually also really, really love the first or the second Bowie album that was kind of later known as Space Oddity, but was originally just called David Bowie.
Yeah, it's great.
Which is all folk stuff. It's all kind of him. I
love
and
that
acoustic
early
guitar.
stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, it was you that sort of got me into that stuff. I knew bits and bobs from the Space Oddity single and what's that track? The Gospel According to Tony Day.
Oh yeah, that's very early. That's first album.
Yeah, which I really like.
Yeah. Love You Till Tuesday and all that stuff.
But I never bothered with that early stuff. I think, like a lot of people, I just thought it was juvenilia, and to be ignored. And then I think I was round yours probably in the 90s, and you were really into them. And
I loved all that
I remember
stuff.
sort of Mr. Gravedigger, that
Please,
track,
Mr. Gravedigger.
which is just incredible.
It's mad, yeah.
And I love all of the sort of the woodwind arrangements and all of that, of those records. Yeah, they're great. They're really great records. Young Americans is such a good record.
Yeah. It's weird, though, because I was thinking about this. Not long ago, that my favourite Bowie track, though, out by a country mile, is Driving Saturday.
Really?
Which is not on any of those 6 albums we've just talked about.
Wow.
Yeah, Driving Saturday. Oh,
that's a good track, isn't it?
Still, probably, my favourite song ever.
That's the lyric. The lyric, correct me if I'm wrong, that's sort of kids going to see films, relearning how to have sex.
To have sex, yeah.
Because the future has made that all go away.
We've forgotten how to do that, so we have to watch videos.
He kind of knew what was coming down the pipe, didn't he?
Yeah. The thing about that track as well is it's almost like a doo-wop track.
Yeah.
It's like a very 50s...
He's got that 50s
futurism
vibe
about it.
Yeah.
And for me, it fitted into... I was 12, I think, when it came out. And it fitted in with, for me, at that point in time, completely with reading Ray Bradbury, who did the Martian Chronicles, which was like a book I got into at that point. And it was 1950s version of the future. So it was very innocent in a lot of ways, short stories. And I saw Driving Saturday, the kind of doo-wop 50s feel about it. It all sort of made sense to me with that record.
That's, I think it's somewhere in there, somewhere in that relationship between records we heard and went in deep when we were young, books that we read, TV shows that we watched, that era of space, NASA, moonshots, electronic music, synthesizers, Bowie, Eno, all of that is the sort of primordial soup of our magazine, isn't it?
I guess, yeah, it is. It is.
That is always sort of goes back to those things. And I think a lot of the people we talk to and interview and the worlds that we investigate, what I find doing the interviews is so many people have got that similar sort of origin story, I guess.
Yeah.
The generation before, it was rock and roll and Chuck Berry, and you look at the Beatles and what they were into. It was that era, but for us, it's that sort of this sci-fi kind of era.
It's an interesting thing. It's an age thing. I guess you go to people who are kind of 10, 12 years younger than us, and it will be, what would it be, actually? I don't know what it would be.
Cyndi Lauper.
It would be. Don't knock Cyndi Lauper.
I love Cyndi Lauper. Don't get me wrong, and Madonna.
I've got a very good Cyndi Lauper story, but for another time. I guess we better wind up.
Let's wrap up there. Well done, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us.
Thank you for listening.
Hopefully, we'll come back with another one.
Let's do it again.
Should we do another one?
Let's do another.
Okay. All right. We'll do another one.
Great.
And we'll leave it there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for everyone who helped on the technical side. I would name them, but I'll do that next time. I'll have a proper list ready. We'll try to be a little more organised, shall we?
No. Let's not.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for listening. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.